A word! This guy, who's been giving us so much trouble, loved words. He could mix and match them effortlessly, and this is part of what made him so great. Now you see, our problem is we live in the modern world. A world that hasn't really been touched by huge poofy collars and bad sewage. This obviously makes it harder to understand what Shakespeare is trying to tell us. And we try to make sense out of it, but sometimes the meanings just slip away. Now this to be or not to be speech, what does it even mean? What is Hamlet talking about when he says, "To sleep, perchance to dream, aye, there's the rub"? Well, allow me to offer you my services, and hopefully we can clear up this big word-jumbling mess. We'll start at the beginning. To be or not to be, that is the question. One of Shakespeare's most overused phrases. Here Hamlet is literally asking himself whether he wants to be or not to be. To die or not to die. So just with this first sentence, Shakespeare has already set the mood for the rest of the speech. Hamlet feels that his situation is so terrible, with his uncle and his mother getting married and his father being dead, he feels like it would be better if he just killed himself. Then with the next part, whether 'tis nobler in the mind, Hamlet ponders his options. He can either sit back and take all the misfortunes that life keeps throwing at his face, or he can try to change what's happening by, quote, taking arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. Next, he goes back to his original point, to die, to sleep, wherein he relates the act of dying to a simple sleep. By saying this, Shakespeare actually makes death sound appealing. Hamlet knows that if he were to die, it would end all of his problems. Then he kind of snaps himself out of it with, "To sleep, perchance to dream, aye, there's the rub." All this sentence means is Hamlet is wondering about the afterlife. I kill myself, but then what? This is where the speech really starts to get interesting. But before we continue, look through this section and see if there are any words that you might not know or don't understand. The two words that pop out at me are bodkin and fartles. A bodkin is just a blunt needle, and a fartle is just one of those sacks you tie on a stick when you want to go traveling. Okay, time to read. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pains of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Whoa, we gotta slow this down. In plain English, Hamlet is saying, why do we as a people go through this horrible life that cheats us and breaks our hearts, when to end all of our sorrows all we need to do is kill ourselves with a bare bodkin and be done with it? Pretty intense, right? Well, here's where Hamlet realizes the zinger. Who would fartles bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those as we have than fly to others that we know not of? Here he asks himself the question, so why do we go through this life so willingly? It can only be because we don't know what the afterlife will hold, and we are afraid of what might happen to us when we get there. Once you die, you can't come back. This is why we accept our lives no matter how difficult they are. We would rather stay in the familiar than go somewhere that is unfamiliar.